Apology for the delay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS special webinar, 12 Steps, Planning a Research and Development Project. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Thank you for joining us today. We want to work through these 12 steps so that you'll get a clear understanding of what's involved. Step one is an idea needs to be identified. This is done by the person who's undertaken the research. They may have been undertaking some tweaking in their workshop or their garage during the lockdowns that we've had in the last 14 months because of COVID-19. Or they may have been fiddling on their computer and have developed some ideas for some new packages that they could develop and sell. So the idea needs to be identified. That's the first step. You can't have research and development without an idea. And I just want to show you the paper which we have developed within ESS BIZTOOLS that will give you an overview of the planning a research and development project. Now, for accountants, this space above these double lines is for you to brand this material so you could send it to your clients or prospects. There's an extensive list of contents. We believe that this package which we have developed is very good for small and smaller accountancy firms to be able to utilize to assist clients so that you can grow with your clients. You can understand their research and development activities, help them get the research and development incentive rebate by complying with the legal requirements, and then grow with the clients. Perhaps you can later take them into a grant like accelerating commercialization and even assist them to raise capital as an early stage innovation company. But that's down the track yet. We are currently looking at planning a research and development project. So this paper sets out the whole process. We got links to some forms, which we call business advisory services forms, which we're going to show you a couple of those shortly. We're talking about things like prior art search, and we're going to talk more about that in a moment. So this paper allows a full exploration of all aspects of what's required to have a clear understanding. It's important that hypotheses are identified, or hypotheses, so that experimentation can be undertaken. So that's a brief look at a paper that we've prepared, which will assist you to have that understanding. So step 3 is assemble a small team. Normally in a business, the person that's come up with the idea will go and talk to their boss, and their boss may have to refer it on to someone further up the chain of command, and they'll come back and say, you're okay, you can put a small team together for 2 days and go off and do that research and come back and tell us what you think. And that team has to undertake some preliminary investigations to see whether this is a worthwhile project. And we have a special form which assists in the planning a research and development project, because there's substantial taxation benefits from undertaking these activities, but your client will not be able to claim them unless they have completed the required paperwork. And here's some of the forms that we think will assist. Planning a research and development project. Company name, project number, project title. What's the purpose of this project? AusIndustry and the tax office want to know that. When's it going to commence? Who's the project leader? It's very important that dates and descriptions and people are allocated in this whole research and development process. So what's the idea? What's the objectives of the project? Who's in the small team? What was the results of the preliminary investigations? And what prior art searches, we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute, have been conducted. And that form goes on to record what happened, because this is all part of taxation. And the accountants watching will know that taxation audits normally follow 1 to 4 years after a event has occurred. Therefore, the records need to be kept in very good condition and in detail, so that if an inquiry is made by a government authority in 3 to 4 years' time, the company has the answers to respond to that inquiry. Step 3 is making sure that the company is an entity. Now, the client or the person undertaking the research at this stage could be a sole trader, a partner in a partnership, and they've undertaken some preliminary research. But if they come in and start talking to an accountant now, and it looks like there's a fair expectation that this could be converted into a sound commercial product, then the quicker that that person has an incorporated company, and from there on, all of the research and development activities is undertaken through that company, the better. Because the business operator, the client, will not be able to get any of the research and development incentive rebate, and most definitely will not be able to claim a cash refund if they're trading at a loss, equivalent to the research and development rebate, unless they are a company. So the step 3 is very important. So step 1 and 2, hopefully the small teams identified that this is a worthwhile project and there's more work to be done. So let's get it set up as a company. Step 4, I've mentioned a couple of times already, prior art or literature searches. These are very important, and it's just not in Australia. The Australian government is not going to offer an incentive rebate of taxation to any business if all that's been produced is something that is already known, whether it's in Australia or other parts of the world. So the client needs to undertake some searches. Now, the prime area of searching these days is the internet. Going on, typing in words into Google and reading the responses. If your client believes that they haven't been able to identify any similar products by that type of approach, they should be printing off the literature that they have received, which in their opinion is confirming that there is no prior literature or prior art on this project that they are envisaging undertaking. But the searching needs to go beyond just the internet. And I've mentioned that one. They should be talking to some experts and professionals at universities and professional consulting firms and getting their input, preferably in writing, if not that the person who made the inquiry should be documenting the comments that were made, signing them and placing them in the file that is going to be kept. So that at the end of this process, a decision can be made as to whether the company has been able to identify whether there are any signs of prior art or prior literature anywhere in the world. Now, if someone in Switzerland has invented something but has not published it, has not promoted it, definitely has not developed a product and started to sell it, then a business person in Australia or an inventor in Australia is not expected to be able to find that. So this prior art, prior literature has to be in the public space that people can search and find it. And then the client needs to document why they believe no one else in the world has developed a product or service that they are proposing to develop. Now, this step, number 4, is very important because the company may save itself a lot of money in going ahead and undertaking a full research and development project, only to find that when they lodge an application for the research and development incentive rebate, that application is refused by the tax office or AusIndustry because they believe it is not new technology. So it needs to be properly undertaken. Step 5. So we've finished the prior art search, at least at this stage, and there now needs to be an identification of what is the core activity. What's the key thing that needs to be researched? Obviously, if the inventor knows how to build the product or service or whatever the project involves already, they'd go ahead and do it. But if they've now got to conduct a series of experimentation to determine which is the best approach, they need to identify what those core activities are. What are they trying to prove will work and will be a saleable product? So that's the core activity. So we have a form which will assist in the appraisal for research and development projects. And there's a form that identifies the key basis that has to be incorporated within a research and development system. So there are over 50 forms and papers in this research and development package, pardon me, to assist in the proper recording of information. Step 6, identify the new knowledge intended to be produced. So the inventor's gone out and had a look, done their searches on prior art and prior literature, and have identified that it doesn't appear that anyone has already done this anywhere in the world. So what new knowledge does that person believe that they are now going to try to produce? They need to be able to identify that at the very beginning, intended to be produced. And one of the key requirements in the legislation is that this knowledge cannot be known or determined in advance. So it's not possible to sit down and determine what the new knowledge is going to be based on knowledge that's already known. It has to be something that's going to be new knowledge, not able to be determined in advance. And the key words in the legislation are the systematic progression of work. The company needs to methodically step through a process. There are really no shortcuts. It has to be documented, and the results of experiments has to be recorded. Because the government expects that a business will undertake these research and development activities on a similar way to what research activities are conducted at a university. And universities require proper documentation, accountability, because they're using public money in undertaking these tasks. So we have a form which identifies this concept of systematic progression of work. So we look at, first of all, what was the prior art searches and record them. What information was found that might have been close to it? What are the core activities? And there must be at least one for each research and development project. What was the significant reasons for planning to undertake the activities? And whilst from a business point of view, it might be to make a profit, that's not the answer that we need to submit. It's the generation of new knowledge, and that's what will lead to making the profit, hopefully. And then it's important to identify the hypothesis or hypotheses that apply to this particular project. The hypothesis is a positive statement that then through a series of experiments is either going to be proved or disproved. Now, it doesn't matter for claiming of the costs if the hypothesis is disproved. The key is that the work is carried out in this systematic manner, and then all of the expenditure is claimable. In other words, the government is not expecting a client to have been very successful in this research and development activity. It could be a complete failure as long as the systematic progression of work's been undertaken, and as long as the prior art searches were done properly and honestly, then that expenditure is still claimable. Who was approached for advice? What did they say? And so on is the information contained within that form. So let's move on now. Step 7. The hypothesis relating to the core activities that were identified in step 5 have to be identified. And I probably already referred to that. Step 8. Do you believe that you should be undertaking some of the research and development work overseas, or does your client believe that? Now, there are strict limitations as to what type of work can be undertaken overseas. It primarily means that you can only undertake research and development work overseas if there are restrictions or unavailability of the type of land mass or animals or products in Australia that you need to undertake research on. And if you wish to undertake that work, the company should be applying for an overseas finding prior to the 30th of June in the year that you are going to be submitting the claim to AusIndustry and the Australian Taxation Office, but preferably before you start work, preferably before the client commences work, because AusIndustry and the tax office may reject the claim for the permission for part of the research and development activities to be conducted overseas. And if your client's gone ahead and spent the money overseas, they're probably not going to be very happy when you tell them that the claim's been disallowed. Step 9. Would you like to have received AusIndustry and tax office approval for your project in advance? Yes, you can get that. You need to apply for what is called an advance finding. It will take some time because you have to submit all of your information as to what you propose to do. And then AusIndustry checks that and advises the tax office whether they believe it is appropriate. And then an advance finding is issued, which basically refers to the client's application and says that that has been approved. And then so long as that's what the company does in its research and development project, it will be acceptable. Step number 10. This is not part of the legislation for companies with turnovers under $20 million, but it is for companies with turnovers over $20 million. But I think as part of this concept of going about this on a systematic basis, that a research and development plan for each project should be prepared, analysed, costed, and submitted to the board of directors. A budget should be included as to say how much this project's estimated to cost, so that the application to the board can be seeking approval. And I think for companies, a very important process is what's the financial projections that are likely to emerge out of this research and development project? What's the projected revenue, operating costs, projected profit, and the calculated return on investment? So that the board of directors are looking at something that's estimated to cost $150,000 can have a look at what the projected revenue that could come from that expenditure of $150,000 and what the projected return on investment is from that activity. Because at the end of the day, when you're advising companies or business people, they want to know what the profit's going to be. What's it mean? What's it going to do to their cash flow? What's it going to do to the value of their business? Is this the new best thing for this company to have coming on stream to be able to sell to current customers and new customers as they go forward? Step 11. As part of the systematic progression of work, the tax office and Oz industry expect that the application for approval to undertake a research and development activity should be approved. It should be submitted to the board of directors, or for a larger company, to a senior executive who has been delegated this responsibility by the board of directors. But for companies under $20 million turnover, I think it should always go to the board. So we got a plan, a budget, a projection as to the future income to be earned from this activity, and the projected return on investment all goes to the board of directors. So they've got a full summary and they can consider it, look at the overall financial position of the company, and then give their approval or disapproval for a project. So step 12 in the planning for a research and development project, so that your client understands what has to be done to get started, to go through this process, that there are records to be kept, is when the board of directors approval has come back, the team can then be assembled and told it is now time to get ready. The board has approved the funding application that we submitted to them. They've approved the plan. They've approved the projected profitability from this project and the return on investment. So we now need to get ready to proceed. So that's the initial planning that goes on in a research and development project. There are some forms there, of course, which have to be completed. But the amount of money that potentially the company can earn is 43.5% of the research and development expenditure, the legitimate research and development expenditure. So it can add up to a sizable sum of money. And if the company is trading at a loss, it is able to apply to the taxation office when the taxation return for the company has been lodged for the calculated amount, 43.5% of the eligible research and development expenditure, which is the rebate, to be paid straight into the company's bank account, normally within 30 days of the tax return being lodged. So the company has that money returned to them to be able to use in other projects or just to go into the company's bank account. So that's a great way that the government, about 12 or 14 years ago, introduced this measure to help finance companies undertaking research and development activities. Obviously, that rebate will only be paid out if the company's loss is more than what the calculation comes to. If not, a lower amount will be paid. And the company's carried forward losses are then adjusted because they've already received the benefit of the research and development incentive rebate. So what's your role in all this for the accountants, bookkeepers, business advisors, chief financial officers who are watching this presentation? And obviously, if you're a business operator, you want to know what the client's angle is, looking at what accountants are doing in this, well, this is for your information. You need to be able to come to grips with how this whole process works so that you can inform your clients or prospects of the research and development journey. This is not a very quick fix. This is a journey, and it's a fairly long one, but it can be very worthwhile because an outstanding product might emerge that the company can make a lot of money from. It's very important that accountants create an awareness with clients as to the processes required to be able to claim the research and development tax incentive, so that people know what they're working for and also clearly understand the importance of preparing the records, the various forms that we've shown you only a few of in this overview this morning, but we're looking at the planning aspect at this stage. In 2 weeks' time, we're moving into the next phase where we're going to look at 10 steps of getting ready to undertake a research and development project. On this journey, we have just shown you today what goes into getting the planning underway and getting the board's approval. So we've done that. Now, the team that's going to undertake the ongoing project has to get ready. And that could include external contractors, consultants, professionals, and other people need to be brought together. And there's a whole range of issues to do with safeguarding of intellectual property, perhaps going through a patent application, and other things that we'll be looking at when we undertake the 10 steps to getting ready to undertake a research and development project. Now, that webinar is on Monday, the 12th of April, 2021 at 12 noon AEST. There's no daylight saving then, so that's great. We're back to AEST on the East Coast, and the other time zones will know how they fit in with AST in the normal time zone. So that's when we're presenting that free webinar on the 12th of April. If you have any questions on any aspect of the planning for a research and development project that I've discussed with you today, please don't hesitate to send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and I will get back to you. I look forward to hearing from you. If you are interested in receiving more information on the products and services developed by ESS BizTools to assist accountants to be able to offer a range of business advisory services to assist their clients or your clients to undertake this type of work. So have a great day. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye. And I hope you have enjoyed this recording today. Thank you.